What is your, guess I can't go into that store ever again, story?
When I was a kid, my family went to a pizzeria and before the food came, I went to inspect the plumbing. They had those sinks where you press down on the knob and the water would flow, with the knob slowly raising back up before it would turn off after 20 seconds. I used my fist and hit the top of the knob and the thing just popped off and a huge geyser of water was erupting non-stop. Me and another kid were in there, we looked at each other and just bolted from the bathroom. I got back to my seat and just sat there silent. Then my mom went to use the bathroom, and when she came back, she told us this story of how there was a pool in the bathroom hallway and the manager and an employee were in the men's room slipping and sliding trying to shut off the water. My whole family was laughing at the story, but I just sat there silent. They asked me what's wrong and I told them it was me that did it. They never fail to mention it every time we drive past a pizzeria even now 20 years later. I've never stepped foot in one since then.
Dramatic silence. Can't you see, mother? It was me. I did it. It was my fault. How do you expect me to live with that?
Considering it must have been on the way out anyway, you did them a favor. Imagine if it burst at night after close. This is actually a pretty funny memory. But I understand why you felt bad and never returned. Did you all finish your meal?
Yup, the waitress even told us what was happening as well, and my family all looked at me holding in laughter while she did.
Do barbershops count? Decided to get a haircut whilst having a cold. Sneezed and farted at the same time. Never went back.
Oh God, I finally have a reason to share this story. One of the first jobs I had, I approached my boss in his office to discuss a report. As I was standing near him, he was sitting in his chair reading the file on his desk. I felt a sneeze come on. Knowing that I didn't have time to grab a tissue, I just turned away from him. However, the sneeze held off but the gas in my stomach did not. I crop dusted the poor man. Embarrassed, I whipped my body back around to face him and the centripetal force of my motion must have knocked my sinuses loose. I sneezed upon completing the spin, but was in too much shock to cover my face. I gave my boss both an aura of noxious odor and mucus spewed across his face.
Ah, the old snort, it happens to the best of us.
Went on a first date with this girl to a new restaurant in town. She proceeded to get sloppy drunk and made a huge scene. From the classic could not control the volume of her voice to insisting on trying to show me and some other gentleman nearby what kind of underwear she had on while loudly insisting that she's a good girl, though. The server we had seemed to get that I was not a willing part of this, but I was so mortified there's no way I'd ever go back.
Note to self, never go on a date in a restaurant you're really like.
True story, one of the best first dates I ever had was going to this corny chain sandwich restaurant that my social group always made fun of. I almost didn't go when my date suggested it, but then he explained his rationale. We can embarrass ourselves as much as we like because no one, either of us knows ever goes here.
I'm at a coffee shop, have a glass of coffee in front of me, filled to the top. That is almost overflowing. I raise my hand to get the waitress' attention because I want to order something else. I accidentally whack the shit out of the glass. This sends it flying across the room where it hits the waitress on the thigh and gets coffee everywhere. Felt bad, so I left and never went back.
Nice shot.
Heard this in the Wii Sports announcer's voice.
Just how hard did you hit that cup?
Pretty hard. My hand basically shot out and up when I noticed her walking by. I was like, excuse a shit. My bad.
My girlfriend fist bumped the clerk when he was actually reaching to grab a paper we had just signed. Anyway, we don't go to that tire kingdom anymore.
I fist bumped the cashier at a grocery store a couple days ago. He was just handing me my change. Never buying groceries again. It brings up dark memories.
This is a fond memory. Moved downtown to our university area. Got myself a sweet deal on a cheap, ghetto-as studio. The kind that get rented out to poor students next to the area homeless shelter. 2006, rent is only $300 a month, and I'm not in school. Too busy being punk rock and making just enough for a roof and partying. Paradise? One weekend, I go to a show, get completely housed, and stumble back up the hill to either get more up or pass out at home. I decide to stop at the 7-Eleven directly across from my building, you know. Snacks. I grab everything my impulses and lack of inhibition tells me to, and I'm about to pay for this garbage and be on my way. Set my things on the counter and politely introduce myself to the cashier, as she is ringing up my last couple things, without any kind of warning or rumbling beforehand. I am in excruciating pain, right in my gut. A split second flashes by, I clutch and clench my legs together. I gasped, "Bathroom." To her. It was too late 5 seconds ago. I try to take a step and bam. My bowels unleash with not only an ungodly sound from my ass, but a simultaneous yelp as if I were a chihuahua that had just been stomped on. I swear I have never been so suddenly sober without a cop being involved. I have shorts on, I look down, and just liquid it down the back of my leg, into my boots, and starting to puddle on the floor. I just ran. No change. No snacks. No words. I lived at that spot for almost 2 years. Never went back, and never even walked across their lot to get anywhere. I would walk the same way around that place to avoid it every day. I feel terrible.
Don't feel bad, dude. It happens.
She probably tells that story to this day. So this dude just himself right in front of me and runs away without saying a word.
I sat on a Target shelf, and the entire row of shelves crashed down onto the ground.
Those shelves are not very strong at the wrong angle.
They were made of medium kind of metal, a uniquely pliable substance that fails when things like objects or air or photons or eyesight are laid upon it.
They're made of medium kind of metal, call it by its proper name, chinesium. Also, by the act of looking up the correct spelling, till there is in fact a chinesium subreddit community here on Reddit. There truly is a subreddit for everything.
Down the rabbit hole I go.
I tripped up over my shoelace and crashed into a shelf and broke it. The manager chased me out of the store.
I guess you must have been young. If you were an older lady, they might have been worried about you being injured or something.
I was 14, so yeah.
I used to go to the same haircut place since I was in kindergarten until I was in my teens. One day I go for a haircut and get this new, fairly attractive woman. As she's starting, I start to sweat. Now sometimes when I was younger my head would get really hot and my head would sweat when I wasn't put on the spot sometimes. Anxiety, I guess, no idea, but it's mostly gone away thankfully. Usually a few drops of sweat will roll down my face when this happens, but not today. It was like someone was standing over me slowly pouring a bottle of water slowly over my head. It just kept going and going. Eventually the girl mentions, "Wow, you must be really hot." I'm already very nervous and blurt out the first thing that pops into my head, "Yeah, it must be because you're pretty." I'm not sure why this is happening. You're pretty, but it's not like you're that pretty. So pretty much as soon as the last words are leaving my mouth, I start asking myself, why in God's name would you say that? Now I'm even more embarrassed and I have to sit through a haircut feeling like an idiot, a drippy wet idiot. Actual surveillance footage of me as the haircut was finishing. I spent the rest of the haircut praying for it to be done quickly or for a meteor to come through the ceiling and put me out of my misery. The girl handled the rest of the haircut like a pro, no idea why she didn't just kick me out. She finished, I paid, gave her a huge tip, and now I drive further to get my haircut done somewhere else.
Yeah, it must be because you were pretty. Okay, not all that smooth, but she might be flattered and give you a smile. Not too bad. I'm not sure why this is happening. Alright, starting to ramble here, but she might write it up to you being nervous or something. Still okay, you were pretty, but it's not like you're that pretty. Good God, man, what the hell?
This is the most painfully awkward thing ever and I love it.
If you just cut yourself off after that first phrase, you could have salvaged it.
Not a store, but a public library. We're at the counter, and the librarian is scanning the books we've selected. She was generously sized. My little brother, 4 or 5 at the time, tugs my mom down to whisper something in her ear. He was rather new to the concept of whispering. He put his hand up to shield his lips from the librarian. Despite all this, he says, about the librarian, at standard speaking volume, "Hey mom, why ever notice how fat that lady is?" Mom tried to play it off by saying something akin to, "He thinks it's okay to say it to others because he says it to me. But my mom's not fat." It did not work. We used to go there every day when my mom didn't want to have to hire a babysitter to watch us during the summer. She'd bring us to her office and let us walk across the street to the public library to play games on their Windows Vista PCs or just read books. She'd always come to pick us up when she was done with work. She started looking for babysitters soon after.
Ha ha, I did something similar when I was 5 or 6. Still embarrassed about it. My dad and I were walking into Walmart, and a very fat lady rolled past us on one of those motorized carts. I yelled to my dad, "Look, Dad, a fat person. She's fat." I'm sure my dad was dying of embarrassment, ha ha.
While at the till at the convenience store paying for my lunch, the girl behind the counter asked if I wanted to go for a drink. Being married, I made my apologies hastily, pointing to the ring on my fingers, to which she replied that my lunch was a meal deal and would be cheaper with a drink.
She never used the phrase, "go for again."
Part of me feels like that was her cover.